Okay, we'll continue. Well, welcome everybody on a Thursday night. Hopefully everybody's kids are out of school by now and on vacation. But we are the Fun Moms and we are partnered up with Morgan and the East Bay Regional Park to talk about camping. So a little bit introduction. We'll just start with Morgan.
All right. Welcome, everyone. My name is Morgan Evans, and I am a recreation coordinator for the East Bay Regional Park District. I've worked for the Park District for about 13 years now, and I've done many different job titles, but my favorite thing to do, one of my favorite jobs, is to go camping. And so I am in charge of our Adventure Crew program, which is doing outreach with kids between the ages of 10 and 13, taking them on camping trips, backpacking trips, all kinds of adventures, and also our Park in a Day Camp, which is our public day camp that we run every summer. But I have a lot of experience camping, backpacking, and I also have my degree in the culinary arts. So I can definitely talk about if you have any food related comments or questions related to camping. So I'm super excited to share my knowledge with you all. I'm going to do a PowerPoint later about Leave No Trace principles. I'm also a Leave No Trace principle trainer. So I'm excited to be here.
Thank you. Nasli.
Hi everyone, my name is Nasli Proa and I am in Fun Mothers Club. I did not grow up camping and but I always wanted to go. Like when I was growing up, I always wanted to go camping. And I have a background in environmental science. I eventually studied because I love science, because I loved astronomy a lot. I think it was like I was drawn to going outside, and so I think my first experiences camping was as an adult, and it was a little bit surprising. And I feel like I've learned a lot since then. And I want to share like some of those things so other people that didn't grow up camping are also comfortable going outside and trying new things. My background is in environmental science. I worked for Girl Scouts for a number of years and got trained through them as well. So that's, and I've been camping and backpacking a few times myself. So,
And how old are your kids?
my kids are 3 and 6.
And how long have you been camping with them?
And we've been camping since for forever. Since I went camping when I was,
I mean the babies.
babies, and I was like 7 months pregnant when I was camping.
Oh my gosh.
So I
Wow.
was not afraid of going outside. But
That's great. So the babies were going camping when they were in you. So are you good? Yeah. So I'm Connie. I am the speaker coordinator for the Fun Moms. We'll talk about the Fun Moms a little bit. And as for myself, I'll talk a little bit about camping too. I also did not grow up camping. My parents don't know anything about camping. They have never gone camping in their life, but I started in my 20s and I liked it. And I must say I didn't camp for a long time until the kids came along. And I thought this is a great thing for the kids to do because they like to be outside, hopefully, and I want them to like being outside. And so I have two kids. They're now 10 and 12. And we started going, I think, when my youngest was around 4, because I am not as brave as Nestle. But when they were walking and they were able to walk well, I was like, let's go, we're camping. So we go camping. Before COVID, we were camping probably 2, 3, 4 times a year. So we're not huge campers, but my kids are used to camping and they can set up their own tents and all that stuff. We're also Girl Scouts. So I have the Girl Scout camp certification, which is not a huge thing, but they have a couple of things that they teach people that was a little bit different than what I have seen. So we will bring that up a little bit later. So that's a little bit about me. Natalie, do you want to go to the next slide, please? And the Fun Moms. So Fun Mom stands for Fremont Union City, Newark. But we are fun. And I've been with the club for about 9-10 years. I think I joined when my little was in May. I learned about the Fun Moms earlier than that, but I thought, let's join when I'm pregnant. That feels like more like a mother, but even though I already had a baby at that time. But we have been around since 91. And we do a lot of different fun things with kids, without kids. So if you have any questions, please let me know. We're a nonprofit and we have speaker series. So I'm the coordinator, and this time we're talking about camping, and some things are coming up next month. We have Shannon, who will talk about disaster preparedness as well as estate planning. And then in August, we're going to talk about mental health for kids. So hopefully you'll find out about those and join if you could. Should we go on to the next one? Yeah, and if you have any questions, please go ahead and put in chat or just speak up. We're going to be very loosely interactive here. So our agenda, we're going to talk about why we might want to go camping, start planning the camping, equipment, gear, safety, etiquette, fun. So I think people have a fear about camping. They think there's like a huge thing that they need to do and think about and all that. And it is, but it doesn't need to be though. Like just jump in and just do it. And all of the campsites are so close to places. You can run home to get stuff. You can go to Safeway and get all the things that you need. There's an REI within an hour, I'm sure. So just go and have fun outside. Should we go to the next one? Like we were saying, camping is good for you. So if there's any reason to go, just go. Your kids might be young, but it's okay. So the Fun Moms used to have camping for families, and I went back in the day with the kids, and there were some that were strapped to the stroller because they couldn't walk well, or they were just carried on the moms or dads the whole time. But it's great to be outside and just have fun. So hopefully you're thinking the same, and that's why you're here.
I just want to go back to the other side. I think for a second, because I put I don't think I can. But I just want to mention that comfort zone is important. I found that comfort zone chart, and you'll find like lots of different comfort zone charts online. But I think getting to know or being here is like your way of stepping out of that comfort zone and going and beyond the fear zone, because there's a lot of things that you don't understand about going camping, and then the more you learn, the more you realize, oh, I can do that, oh, I can do that. And then I think that I'm really grateful that everyone is here today, that or who's watching this, to learn more and to get yourselves out there and experience life and start living your dreams. So I think that's why. And then I put this slide because there's so many reasons why you should take kids outside, and there's so many reasons why you should be going outside. And there were so many articles about it that I don't even have to mention it, because I'm sure everyone has heard all the benefits about going outdoors, that you can Google any one of these things and find these articles that might interest you. And it's just the reasons go on, and they're endless. Okay, Connie.
Should we go to the next slide?
Yeah, next slide. Okay, this is for Connie.
Okay. So planning ahead and what type of experience you're looking for. So first thing's probably where. Get recommendations. Go to Yelp. Go talk to people. And Fremont Mommy's Facebook group. They talk about camping, where they want to camp, how to get. So the way to get accommodations for camping would be to go on the California Reserve site, and they have all of the California camps available there. Those are the public ones. And then I think Morgan, the ones that you in the East Bay, are they also there? In the
Reserve America, sometimes they are, but mainly you go through our own reservations department to reserve our sites within our district. In the
Okay.
East Bay Regional Parks.
So it sounds like different districts also have sites to also reserve. And then another one up here, there's KOA. So KOA is a separate camping private locations. And they are, I think, countrywide. And in order to reserve with them, you have to become a member. And I think last time I checked, it was around $50 a year.
Mm.
And then, or you find people who are members to help you reserve. I'm sure there's a lot of people that are KOA members if you don't want to become one. And then that leads to the different types of accommodations. So mostly here, we're talking about tent camping, which Morgan will refer to as family camping. So like your own family. Usually they come in well, they say that you can have 8 people in the campsite. And so that's like a bigger family. And then through KOA, they have TPs that you can rent. They have cabins that you can rent. There's also yurts that you can rent from the KOA locations. And I've seen some yurts in public states and different locations as well too. And then we also talked about RV. So you can rent an RV, or if you know people with RVs, you can drive those RVs to the camping sites to actually live in there while you're outdoors. And we were talking about how for RVs, if you're not familiar with them, they're recreational vehicles. So they usually have bathrooms inside, they usually have little kitchenettes inside, and they have beds inside of these recreational vehicles. And in order to clean them out, you have to do that at the campsites. And when you rent them, usually they show you how to do that. And then when you get to the campsite, they probably have rangers that can show you how to do that as well too. If you're not familiar with that, I have not been in an RV. I don't think I've been inside of RVs before, but I have a friend who has one, but usually we do tent camping, family camping, and that's what we're going to talk about here. And then the next thing is activities. What kind of thing do you want to do at the campsites? So there's hiking, there's beach, there's lake. There's also, so one of the places that I had suggested was China Camp, which is in San Rafael. So it's like about an hour and 15 minutes away from here. And we love that camp. We were going there once a year because it's not what you call car camping. So people refer to car camping where you drive up to your campsites and then you kind of open up your trunk or your back door and you unload all the stuff, which is probably like 30 feet away, and then you just camp. But at China Camp and San Rafael, you have to actually bring your stuff in. It's more like, they say it's about a quarter mile far. It's not very far, but you do have to lug all your gear inside. But the great thing about that is that your kids can run wild, not run wild, but they can run around and you don't have to worry about cars hitting them. So in other places, like there's Sugarloaf, which is in Kenwood, which is north of us. I believe they have the roads right there. So you have to watch your kids, especially the little ones walking into the road. they all have like 10, 15 mile limit. So you're not supposed to go drive really fast, but still, I mean, it's not as safe as there's no cars there. So for activity at the China camp, we would bring our bikes, we bring our scooters, and the kids just run, which we loved. So we're gonna get back to that whenever life gets a little bit more normal. And then that brings me to camping with others. Like if you have family, like usually it's good for 8 people in the campsite. So usually it's like 2 families. And so you can share your load with the gear, you can share the load of cooking with another family, and you can share the load of planning with another family too. So that's kind of what I wanted to say on those topics.
Can I add to it, Connie?
Yeah, please.
So I really like China Camp. I don't know if it's a regional park or it's a
No, I think that's like a state park.
state park. So and Sugarloaf is also a state park, and Sugarloaf Ridge is in Sonoma, I believe. And
County.
we've also done China Camp for day trips and Sugarloaf for camping, and we're actually going this weekend.
Mm.
Oh, wow, cool.
But then we also have been to a couple of the East Bay. We really like Lake Chabot, which I think Morgan is going to speak about, and Sibley East Bay is also in the East Bay Regional Park, and we have done also bigger trips to Yosemite, to the Sierras, and if you want to start like in my opinion, if you like to hike, then camping is your next step because now you have access to like so many more trails to hike and like experience way more things. You can find waterfalls and rivers and different animals. So I feel like that experience of hiking is just kind of extended. And then once you like to camp, the next step is like, well, what's next? And then so we started backpacking, and then backpacking is where you leave your car, park it somewhere, and then hike your gear up into a site that's more secluded, and then um, you set up camp there. So we've done a couple of those trips, and those are really amazing because then now you can bring like a portable telescope or some binoculars, and then like the sky, you can see the Milky Way at night. Like just it's so romantic and beautiful, and I think I recommend like you like those steps are really good. And if you start the children younger, then by the time that they're older, you can take these like more adventurous trips with them. So we did. My son did a backpacking trip when he was 2, and then Sibley is a really good place to go because they parked the car, they walked. It's less than a mile to the campsite, and then they set up camp, and then they came back the next day. So it was exciting, but then it was reasonable for the little ones. So I really recommend. I'm really excited to hear what Morgan is going to say about those sites.
Nasli, what was the
is
name of that site again?
The Sibley site is the like light backpacking backpacking trip. Sibley.
SIBLEY?
Yeah, it's one of the East Bay Regional Parks. It's our volcanic park. It's up in like the Oakland Berkeley Hills. It's along, the road that takes you past Redwood and Roberts. It's kind of in that chain of parks, and you can backpack in there.
Cool. What is your favorite thing about Sugarloaf, Nestle?
I really like Sugarloaf because it has the very gentle creek. So it's like a river. There's a waterfall hike that we did, and we did it when my son was 4, and he walked the whole hike. And then my daughter was, I think she must have been 2 then, and then she got carried part of the way, but the waterfall turns into like a mild creek, and the kids can actually walk across it. And then there's deeper areas where you can find tadpoles and a couple of frogs, and that's like nature that you can't find anywhere around here. Like it's really hard to find, especially because we have salt water, and it's just not the nature we find around here. But that's really exciting that they can grow up seeing that, and we're gonna go. I'm looking forward to looking for tadpoles this time as well.
They have a planetarium there too. Remember that? So Nasli and I camped over there with a group, and the group site, there's a couple of group sites, and one of the group sites there's right by the planetarium. And we were lucky enough that when we went that night, I'm not sure who it was, but they are authorized to open it up, and they let our kids go up and see. That was amazing.
That reminds me that, you know, when we went to Sugarloaf last time, there was this like safety alert. There was like a cat that was hanging around our campsite. So I think this is like one thing that maybe may come up when you go, like you'll see animals approach you. And I was really nervous. I think having with the little ones, I think you have to keep them close enough, like never lose your sight on them. They can never like go too far. So I just like when I saw the cat, it was just kind of curious maybe what we're doing. And um don't be afraid to be loud and scare it away, and make like let them know that, like make loud noises and until it's gone. And then we made sure we told the ranger at the visitor center that we saw one. I think it was just like a it wasn't a mountain lion or anything. It was like one of those little cats, the wild cats.
Cat.
Yeah. So I think it's like your picture. Is that your
That's my personal fur child. Yeah, not he thinks he's a bobcat, but
oh,
he's
yeah.
just a long-haired tabby with a big attitude. Yeah.
So that's what. And then another thing that that I wanted to mention now that's on my mind is one time we went camping with other families, and make sure like if you're going with other families, even if you're not and you're going in a family camp, just to say hi, you know, to your neighbors, like who's with them. Take note, because that community feeling is really helpful. If they see something, hey, you know what, we saw a cat on this trail, or we saw this on this trail. If you know, crossing paths, like that's all really helpful information, and that can help you guys stay safe and keep others safe. One time, and something about setup too. One time, my husband and I did a backpacking trip, and we kind of got a little lost on our trip. This was before children. But what we noticed, it was a really windy day, and it was in the redwoods. So we heard a lot of trees falling down. Like a redwood falling is like so scary. It was so scary in the forest. We decided to just go back to the car and then drive home, because it just, you know, be aware of your surroundings, look at the trees. If the tree branches don't look safe, don't put your tent under there. Just, I think those are like general safety things that I think about every time we go. But
Yeah.
just wanted to add that.
Should we move on? We have a few more slides to go.
This is my gear slide. These, I think these are the basic gears. I have a picture of the tent we purchased. Once we had my daughter, my second child, then we figured we needed a bigger tent, and this is actually our bigger tent. So it was an REI purchase. We bought this tent because we like camping. It's a little bit more expensive, and but it's very light and we can take it backpacking with us. So we would be able to carry this tent. It's very light and can go anywhere with it. If you're new to camping, you don't have to get a fancy tent or an REI tent. I just when I went to Costco the other day, they have big giant tents that you can buy if you're not sure camping is for you. But if you think, okay, this is something that I do want to do, then it's probably a good idea to get a more expensive tent if that's what you need. If you need a backpacking tent, then it's going to be a little more because the material is better, it's lighter, it's the waterproofing will last longer, and so all of these things are things that you think about when you buy a tent. I don't know if you want to add something to that, Connie.
I agree to all of that. And also, when you're first starting out, possibly buy a used tent or borrow a tent. And then Morgan also mentioned there is the website that is in the chat, www.bawt.org. She was saying that maybe you can talk a little bit about it, Morgan. I'm sorry.
Yeah, so it would take the moms group organizers to contact this organization called BOT. It's Bay Area Wilderness Training, and they will train your staff how to use their camping gear. You have to go through a front country training, which is like a car camping overnight, or a backcountry training, which they'll take you on a small trip. And then Connie and Nasli could borrow gear from this organization to facilitate having like group trips that you all would have. If you decided to do a group camping trip, you could access this gear for free. You just need to go through their training. Some of your partner staff need to go through that training.
I think we'll do that.
Super fun. It's super fun, and it makes it accessible for people who just don't have the resources.
Yes, we'll do.
And I also have bought tons of gear off of Craigslist. I got a REI really heavy car camping tent that I love. I can actually stand up in it. I was like, oh my God, this is the best thing ever. So there's such an array of gear out there, but it's true when you're starting, maybe just borrow it or rent something just to see if you're going to actually enjoy the activity. I ended up getting a Coleman stove that these two women they decided they were going to go camping, and they spent one night and they were like, never again. So I got this brand new Coleman stove that they had paid top dollar for like $10. So the deals are out there. You just have to look around.
Yeah.
Those Coleman stoves are nice. What kind of tent did you get, may I ask?
Oh, it's an REI. I mean, I can't remember the name of it, but it is like it's a 4-person tent for just the two of us. I actually have a cot that I put together that it makes it so comfortable, and I string lights in there like they have in the catalog.
Yeah.
I do both car camping and backpacking, and our gear is very different for the two activities, but I love my car camping tent. I love that I can stand up in it. I love the lights. I love everything about it. So besides the weight, which I would never take on a backpacking trip, but yeah, it's super fun.
That's
Can you talk about, sorry, is there any chance you could talk about just the sleeping, like choices of, I don't know, foam cushions, or what do you guys use? Because that's the hardest part for me, is making sure I'm comfortable.
Yeah,
and if you do go backpacking, what do you carry, basically? If you don't mind.
If you go backpacking, then we just you carry the least amount of stuff as possible, and it would be the sleeping bag and a mat, and there's like inflatable ones like that are they're really thin pads. When in the before times, I think even like a yoga mat or like a foamier mat would be helpful under your sleeping bag, just so you're not kind of against the cold ground. But
you never want to lie just straight on the ground. It's very uncomfortable.
yeah, and there's we've been camping with families that take air mattresses. Like it's up to you when you go camping in a car. Like you really It's like everything's game. You can bring.
You can bring the kitchen sink,
I actually
literally.
bring a little mattress that is like a twin size IKEA mattress,
Mm,
and it is so comfortable.
there's nothing like
And I
getting a good
have
night's
to
sleep.
sleep on that because I don't like to sleep on the ground. So I don't
No.
actually don't do backpacking because I wouldn't want to be on the ground. Yeah, I'm a little bit spoiled. Even in when we go to China camp and we gotta hike in like half quarter mile or third of a mile, I have a little wagon. That's like a one individual trip that I walk it in, but I really need it.
Yeah. That's the one piece of equipment I don't have, but it is on my list to get that gorilla cart to carry things when you need to like hike it in a ways. There's a lot of gear out there, and there's so much information, different chat sites and whatnot. But just go to your local REI and tell them what your activity is, what you're planning on doing, and they can help you decipher between all the different mats and other types of gear.
Yeah, we used to have the air mattress, but we popped a couple, so I didn't like those anymore. And then like you're like in the middle of the night and the air comes out and you're like slowly going on the ground. I did not like that.
That's the worst. Yeah.
I put I think a sleeping bag is a really good investment in any kind of camping. And then if you have kids, we've used our sleeping bag. This one is a kid, I think it's called a Kinder Cone from REI, and when they have their sale, these get pretty cheap. So I personally recommend these sleeping bags. And even just like when we go visit the grandparents, we take the sleeping bags and the kids sleep on the ground anywhere, like sleepovers with their cousins. Like they just come in so handy. So I really like that we got our kids these. And then when I took my daughter, when my daughter was little, we took her on a camping trip, and I took the pack and play to put her outside because she wasn't walking yet, but she was able to crawl, and I can put toys in there. And then I saw this hack, so you can also like Pinterest like camping hacks to put a crib sheet to cover the top of the pack and play so leaves don't drop in there. And then she like starts playing and eating those. So it was really helpful to put her in there and put her down, especially because you don't know how dusty or how dirty the ground is going to be. Like sometimes it's nice if it's rocky and like has grass, but a lot of times it's not. And so it's nice to have a place for the babies. And since babies can't have the sleeping bag, we used a snowsuit for her. So I wouldn't recommend having a baby with you in the sleeping bag. I think that's really uncomfortable if you're in a sleeping bag. Having the baby sleep next to you in a snowsuit, I think was really helpful for us. And you both get at least a little bit of sleep. If you're taking young kids, I think it's expected to, I think I expect that I'm not going to get any sleep. I think that's the mentality. Just be prepared that you're not going to get any sleep when you have a little baby with you, but I still have fun. And then the REI does rent some equipment, but the Fremont one I checked, and they don't have that many things. I think there's more things in Oak. I think Berkeley has an REI that rents more things, but they do have bear canisters. And then maybe I was hoping maybe Morgan can talk a little bit about when we need them. And another investment that I really like is a camping chair. I think even though there's picnic tables at some of these sites, like the kids don't reach or they're awkward. And a lot of times that picnic table is used just to kind of hold the stuff, not really to have meals on. Usually you sit on a chair and then you hold your plate in your lap. And those are my favorites.
There were a couple of questions. Anya had asked a question about how can you kind of minimize the amount of stuff that you bring? Like what would that look like? So if you go to REI's website, they'll have camping lists, backpacking lists, and they'll have like minimalist lists. So you can, and even the list that has the camping gear has highlighted all the things that are kind of the essentials. And then, you know, in another color font, they have things that you could bring if you really felt like it. So there's resources out there to see, you know, general gear, what you really need, and then there's extraneous things. But DK, you had a question, your hand was up.
Hi, I'm Dharini. I have some very generic questions when it comes to camping and thing. We went 7 years ago with a big group. So they only said, get a tent and get some chairs. And that's all we did. And so they had, I think somebody bought like a small propane stuff or something. And we had to get maybe a torchlight to use it for the night in case we had to use the restroom. I think it was okay because I had so many people. We really want to try with our son, but I have no clue how he's going to like it, especially in the night. Because the last time when we went camping, number one, I'm scared of the dark, and and getting the child also to use an unfamiliar space, like, okay, fine, you know what, right now it's home, he knows he has to brush and, you know, just get his bedtime done. um, is it uncomfortable if your child is just being fussy and the entire space is just quiet? Do you just take a deep breath and say, you know what, let's go to sleep and more the next day? Or do you any experiences and how you dealt with would be very helpful. So I'm looking at gear and how to handle kids.
Well, I don't have children, but I've camped a lot with kids. But for like younger kids and kids who have never gone, I looked it up online, and I don't know if this sounds reasonable to Nasli and Connie, but it said to do a trail run in your backyard. Like get your kid out there in the tent. So now the tent is familiar, and now it's just going to be at the location. So I don't know if that would help or not.
Okay. And sorry, another thing was, like, do you find all these bug sprays helpful at all?
So I get bitten a lot.
Okay.
But I put on whatever I need to. I don't like to use DEET, so I try to find natural. Sometimes I just get bit all over, and that's just part of going camping. Usually places near water would have more bugs, and I would get more bit near water. But also there, yeah, I just put on everything that I can find that doesn't have DEET. And sometimes I get bitten, sometimes I don't, but it's just I get bitten anywhere anyway. So and then with the kids part, I think my kids are pretty good sleepers. I mean, the only thing is just that my older one doesn't like to sleep, but when it's camping is, you know, like they're kind of on their own. But when they run and get all tired, they go to sleep. So I haven't had any issues, but I mean, we've camped with people where their kids are screaming at night, but it is what it is.
Always bring earplugs, like always, no matter where you go, even down the street to the store, bring some earplugs. It'll
Yes.
save the night for you, for sure. I've learned that the hard way so many times.
Yeah. And
And
there are
eye
people
shades
partying
too.
too.
Oh,
There's like
people
young kids
partying.
partying. Like they're
Ugh.
20 years old, and you're like, I've been there before. I know what it's like. You're just out and wild and drinking and then, you know, having fun, and it is what it is.
My tips for younger kids, I think kids just love being outdoors. I think they're gonna love nature. I think for the sleeping part, if you have a routine at home, just bring that routine with you, and then those are already the triggers for your child to know that their body needs to get ready for bed. So if you follow that routine at the campsite, they kind of feel that too. But it's still, when you're in the tent, that's like an extra, like exciting thing. So it kind of might make them excited again. So that's why it takes longer for them to go to sleep in the evening. But what was the second question?
Yeah, so yeah, the kids, the bugs, and then gear in terms of cooking, or is there anything else apart from, okay, I have to set up the tent and you need sleeping bags and you probably need a good torchlight in case you need to use the bathroom in the night.
You should have more than one torchlight, because you don't want to take the torchlight from the tent if somebody in the tent needs it. So you want to always have one. If you're gonna get
Everybody should have a flashlight. Sorry.
Okay.
So yeah, everybody should have a flashlight, even the little ones. They
Okay.
love that. Yeah.
They also love to shine it in your eyes. So
Yeah.
it's a double-edged sword,
Yeah.
flashlight.
And we have a stove. We got a stove at the Asian market. There's like tabletop stoves, and it uses the propane. There's also those bigger stoves. I think a stove is necessary, especially nowadays. Like fire season starts earlier. It's starting to kind of cut away some of our camping months, and it's a lot of places like campfires aren't allowed anymore. So depending on, like, relying on building a campfire for cooking, I wouldn't recommend anymore. I think having a stove, or like having or like sandwiches, or like you can even take something, or like stop at a sandwich place, take sandwich in. If you're staying for one night, even, you just take your dinner with you and pack it out, and then that's dinner. You don't even have to cook anything.
Very hard to boil water on a on a campfire.
Yeah.
It just takes a long time. Yeah, I usually actually I didn't have a stove for the very long time, and so we would just start fires because we would have fires anyways. And we would do things like foil dinners. So we would cut up all the things that we want to cook, like veggies. And if you eat meat, usually you cook the meat before you go. So that'll be a little bit easier, and you'll have all of the things that people would want to eat. And so if you have like a lot of people going, they just pick and choose what they want to eat. They make their own burrito, or they make like a potato. So you cook your potatoes, and then you cut in your potatoes, and you put in whatever you want to put in, and then you wrap it up in the foil, and you just stick it into the fire. And you have tongs to take it out, in and out. We used to have hot dogs, but I don't think we can eat hot dogs anymore. It's just bad for us. We just can't handle, like our bodies can't handle it. So we don't do that anymore, but that's easy actually. Or we have friends that would cook like a big pot of chili, and then we just heat it up, and you can put it onto, you can have your stove or in the fire, because usually they have a grill on top, and you just put it on top of the grill, and you just stick your, so what she does is she cooks it ahead, and then she freezes it, and then she brings it, so however long it takes to come, and even like the next night it's still good because it was frozen before, and she just sticks it on the fire and then heat it up. And then we bring like bread to go with it, or tortillas. So those are a couple things that we usually do for camping. And then if we're close to places, we have where we're like, we didn't want to deal with food, and we just like go and run and do like a run at the mall and get our dinner. And then we either eat at the mall, so we don't even need to like clean up, or we bring it back and enjoy it at the campsite. So
It's actually that close to like
so
restaurant.
like the place at China Camp that we talked about in San Rafael, earlier we talked about that one place. You can get to the mall within 20 minutes, I think. There is a yeah, I think that's where we had gone to the mall, but a lot of places there's like Safeway 10 minutes down the way. And I know there's a 10 minutes place that's near there that's like a 7-Eleven. And so Like you can get sandwiches over there. They have you don't even need to buy your food ahead of time. You can just buy all the stuff there and then just go to the campsites. Yeah, camp cooking, think of it more as fun other than like a burden.
Okay.
And creative cooking. Think of ways to, like we didn't do I learned about like the foil cooking later. And then one time I looked it up and I did a French toast inside of the foil. So I put the whole loaf of bread inside of the foil. I think I double foiled it. And then I put like milk, egg, and cream and sugar probably right in the foil. And then I put the whole thing into the fire and it came out really good. It did take a long time because we needed to do the fire in the morning, but we usually do fire at night and fire in the morning. And then we put it out during the day and then we go and do whatever. Or if people are hanging out, we just leave the fire on.
I'm actually in that zone. I think I'm in the fear zone. So that's why we just keep backing off. I was like, okay, not now. This is too much. Especially when like, okay, get the gear, get the campsite. And by the time we reach to a point, okay, you know what, let's try this here. We actually don't know where to look. So we just look up the popular sites that come up on a regular search and then everything is already like close. So I'm yet to take that next, that leap into that. Okay, you know what, let's just do this.
It's
So
been really
you're-
hard this year getting reservations. Everything's been gobbled up months in advance. So it's a bad
If you
year.
go during the weekdays, is a little bit easier. The weekends are pretty packed. Yeah, I used to plan for China camp like 6 months ahead and I'll be fine. But then the last couple of years, I was having a hard time trying to get people to commit 6 months ahead. But maybe with the Fun Moms, we can do that again. We'll get like a group campsite and it'll be much easier that way. And it's not that expensive with the group campsites. It's like $150 for up to 30 people or sometimes 50 people. So it depends on where it is. It's really reasonable.
Just to add to how great China Camp is, on Sundays there's a farmers market like around the corner.
Oh wow!
And it's like the biggest farmers market I've ever been to, and it's so good. And then they have so many cheese booths, and you can sample all the cheeses.
Yum.
I miss that.
China Camp is really nice. We went there for the day and there's water there. People are kayaking. And I recently came upon camping. I didn't know that they obviously there's camping there. So I'd love to try it out. Yeah. Question about when do you think it's a good idea to buy a stove? I mean, and what about the bears? Like, how do you know when it's safe to cook outside?
Well, there's no bears around here as far as camping, but I guess if you go further north,
if you go to Yosemite
maybe,
or Tahoe, but not in the East Bay.
Maybe we could, maybe you can do your slideshow.
Oh,
Morgan.
Sure. You have to enable.
Yeah, you're worried about different animals other than bears around here, Charlene. Yeah, the raccoons and squirrels, but not so much. Maybe cats, but not so much bears.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, whoops. Right, gonna minimize that. Okay, so I'm going to talk about the principles of leave no trace. There are 7 of them. And as I'm talking about these, we're probably going to go over some of the things that you have questions about or concerns about or rules and regulations. I'm going to try to weave that into this so that you have a better understanding of the do's and don'ts. So has everyone heard about Leave No Trace? Has anyone here heard about Leave No Trace before? It's been around a while, but it is a set of principles of outdoor ethics that helps promote conservation in the outdoors. And so these 7 principles act as a guide to lessen our individual impacts on the environment around us. And there's the list of them there to the right. Plan ahead, be prepared, travel and camp on durable surfaces, dispose of waste properly, leave what you find, minimize your campfire impacts, respect wildlife, and be considerate of others. And each of these will kind of help us guide how we act in the outdoors. So the number one principle is to plan ahead and be prepared. And so basically you could just follow this one principle and that will help you for all of your adventures. The more you prepare in advance, the easier and better the time is that you're going to have when you're out in the outdoors. So thinking about some of the things you need to plan ahead for, things you can prepare for, making lists, it will help you have a more successful trip. So knowing more before you go. So, what does this look? Hold on, I need to, okay. Can you all see that?
We can see the bullet points, the checkpoints.
Okay. Something happened when I went into the full screen mode. So, like I said, REI has these online camping checklists, backpacking checklists. There's probably other sites that have them as well. And it's a great guide. Before every trip, I always look at my list because invariably I'm going to forget something. I'm super organized, but you'll end up 50 miles from home and realize that, oh gosh, you forgot the tent stakes. It's happened, right? So always go off of a list, especially when you're bringing small children. You want to make sure you have everything you need for them. So some of the essentials are, have a reusable water bottle that you can fill up. Make sure you have plenty of food and snacks, layered clothing for any type of weather, sunscreen, bug spray, a hat, something to have a barrier from the sun. If you're going to go hiking, make sure you have the right footwear, your day pack, medications. Those are basic essential things for like a day trip. If you're going to go camping overnight, you're going to want to consult another list, but there's all kinds of resources online that can help you through that process. Some other elements to consider when you're planning your trip. So you're talking about where you want to go. Well, what is the purpose of your trip? Do you really want to go hiking? Do you want to see a particular park? Do the kids want to go swimming? That's going to kind of dictate, where you want to make that campground reservation. So what is the goal of your trip? Checking the weather before you go. If the weather's going to turn south, maybe you want to change your plans and put it off for a different time. Gear needed for your specific adventure. So if you were planning on going someplace where there is a swimming hole, you want to make sure that you have your floaties and your swim trunks and your water shoes. Maps of the area you're going to visit. You can find most of this stuff online, so you can always check whatever park's website for information. Who's going? Maybe you're bringing your grandmother, right? What are you going to do to make her comfortable? Is she going to be able to go on the hike with you all? Just considering the comfort level of the people that are in your group, and then the rules and regulations of the location you're going to. So you want to check the websites of the parks you're going to go to ahead of time and find out, hey, maybe I can't bring my ATV all-terrain vehicle there and go three-wheeling out in the park. So just always consult the websites. And if anyone has any questions, feel free to interrupt. So that was prepare ahead and plan ahead and be prepared. So that's like the number one principle, and it basically encompasses everything else that we're going to talk about. So the second principle is travel and camp on durable surfaces. So we've been talking mainly about front country camping, family camping. So you see here, you can just drive right up to the site, set up your tents. And so there's a bunch of rules that are involved in that. So you always want to camp in a designated campsite unless you're doing dispersion camping, which is a whole nother ball game. So when you get to your site, you probably have reserved it ahead of time. They're going to give you a number. You're going to make sure you want to camp, somewhere within that site. You don't want to go off into the tall grass where perhaps there might be ticks, or get too close to the stream. They don't want you to put camp too close to that. So always make sure you're in the actual site. This is a picture of Gillespie, which is up at Tilden Park, and it's one of our nicest group camps in the entire park district. If I were organizing a group camping for my particular organization, I would try to secure this site. It's super nice in the redwoods, kind of off the road, and has a really nice fire pit too. You want to minimize alterations to the sites. So we talk about the rangers and things that upset them. So, if you, there's certain rules in the park where you don't want to hang up a hammock. They don't want you to leash anything to the trees that are there. You want to, not leave any trash around. You don't want to create, if you go to a site and there's not a fire ring, you're not allowed to create your own. If there's no campfire ring there, it means basically that the fires aren't allowed there. You don't want to dig any trenches or cut down branches off of trees or make any other sort of improvements. And if you were to clear the area where you're going to set up your tent of all these pine cones, leave no trace principles dictates that you kind of put things back the way you found them. So you just don't want to make too many changes to your campsite, if that makes sense. Staying on the trail. So when you go for a day hike, you want to reduce the likelihood of what we call social trails. So this is a big problem in the park district right now. The rangers have found that we've had since COVID hit, we've had a lot of more attendance in our parks, and a lot of people that are coming and using our parks who don't have a lot of trail etiquette or just haven't been to parks, and they'll just start walking through a field, and it just seems like an okay thing to do. But what happens is when one person does it, then another person does it, and then all of a sudden there's like a new trail cutting through a meadow that maybe there's some nesting birds in. So basically we want people to stay on the trails that are developed, use the trail whenever it's possible, never cut the switchback. So if there's zigzags in the hillside, you don't want to hike straight down or straight up them because it causes erosion. And you can also avoid poison oak by hanging out on the trail. So that's leave no trace number 2. Leave no trace principle number 3 is disposing of your waste properly. We've also seen a lot more debris in our parks since we've had an increase in participation, and people, a lot of times we see like these single-use water bottles or masks everywhere, toilet paper, and someone has to clean that up, right? So the basic rule is if you pack it in, you pack it out. So even things like food scraps, such as orange peels, they take a really long time to decompose. So you definitely want to take all your trash with you, or make sure that it goes into the proper receptacle. If you're camping and you're washing your dishes, you want to make sure that water gets taken away from the streams. You don't want to dump it anywhere near where there's wildlife, utilizing the water source, or if there's fish in the stream, it will poison them. And always buy biodegradable soap. You can find that at REI. But just be considerate of the environment when you're cleaning up. And again, use the proper receptacle for your waste. One of the things I like to do with kids when I'm doing big group camping is to have them pick up micro trash and make it like a game. Usually when I go camping for my own personal use, I always do the micro trash right when I get there, just because I don't want to camp in someone else's trash. But I find when you camp with children, they kind of just create a ton of trash. They're just not that cognizant about it. And so I make it a game at the end of all of my trips that I do with large groups, where they have to go around and find 10 pieces of micro trash. and gets them understanding the concept of like, leaving the site better than you found it. So that's something you can do with the kids. And also bathing and disposing of your human waste. So if you happen to be in a campground, a camping situation like dispersion camping where you're not near a bathroom, you always want to dig a cat hole 200 feet from water sources and make sure your cat hole is 6 inches deep, and you need to carry your toilet paper out with you. So that's one principle of leave no trace that we all should be aware of. The fourth principle is leaving what you find. So the idea is that if you take that interesting object that you found in the park, then someone else won't have that same sense of discovery that you did. So there's a lot of rules and regulations, especially in national parks, where you can't take natural objects. So again, you need to be aware of the regulations of where you are. So if every person went to the beach, grabbed a seashell or a rock, then eventually there'd be none left. So thinking of other ways that you can capture your moment in nature. You could take pictures, you could draw in your journal. This is a good thing to instill in your kids too when you take them camping, is to leave things where you find them. Avoid damaging live trees and plants. So again, at least within the East Bay Regional Parks, we don't allow anything like hammocks to be strung from trees because it can actually harm the bark and what they call girdle the tree. Carving your initials obviously is not acceptable. Picking flowers, we have a lot of endemic rare plants in our parks, our regional parks, so make sure that we allow them to repopulate. And again, the aim is to kind of leave as little trace that you were there as possible. And again, natural objects, sometimes you go to a park, there's something really cool like an antler. Well, it doesn't seem like anyone could be using that, but actually, certain animals eat that to get a source of calcium. So it's kind of cool thing to bring home with you, but actually it's best just to leave it. And again, in national parks and other areas, it can be illegal to remove those objects. Minimizing campfire impact. So when people think about camping, one of the things that always comes to mind is having a campfire and making s'mores. And it's great. It's super fun. It kind of has a lot of nostalgia around it, but there's a lot of drawbacks to having fires, which we'll talk about a little bit. So some of the things that people really think about is a sense of community. If it's cold out, it really helps, to stay warm. It's something fun you can do, preparing the fire. It's something fun to do with the kids, whether they do like the A-frame or the log cabin or whatnot. So it can be an activity. You can use it to cook if you're going to do some grilling. Again, skill building, and it creates memories. A lot of campfire songs and telling stories around the fires. But it also has a big impact on the environment. I remember camping in Yosemite Valley years ago, and every individual campsite had a fire ring, and everyone had a fire, and like literally I couldn't breathe. Like the air quality was so bad that a lot of times that's why they have like communal campfire rings and campfire talks, is to kind of minimize the impact on the environment. And I think Nasli mentioned how, wildfire season is becoming longer. It's starting earlier. It's ending later. And, by the time we all get around to making a camping reservation, it may be red flag warning. We might not be able to have fires. So just thinking of other ways you can create that sort of ambiance. You can bring lights and like red lights, or make some sort of other thing that kind of simulates a fire. So they always have an impact on the environment. So it's best to save it for a special occasion. Maybe even if you camp for 3 nights, you only have a fire 1 night. Always use a designated campfire ring. You can always use a stove, lantern, or propane fire instead. And always buy the wood where you're camping. Don't bring it from home because there can be beetles in that wood that now will spread a new species to a sensitive area. And again, check your local registration restrictions. And as far as safety goes, you always have a bucket of water or two handy. Make sure your fire stays small. Don't make like this huge bonfire that could get out of control. Never leave it unattended, and always supervise your children around your campfire. No horsing around the campfire. And in the morning, make sure that you put it out. I was camping at this hip camp up in Bodega Bay, and these people like left that morning and left like their fire going, and it's like these people's personal property with like tall grass everywhere. I was like, wow. So you want to be responsible for sure around the fire. Number 6 is respecting wildlife. So we're talking about, bobcats or bears. And in general, when you go to the parks, you don't tend to see a lot of wildlife, mainly because they're nocturnal. But, if you do see wildlife, it's best to be respectful and try not to approach them. Always give them a wide berth. Keep your food securely keep your food secured away from the animals. Once they start getting habituated to people food, that's when they become a problem, and they have to either be put down or relocated or something. So it's like our responsibility to make sure that the animals don't get our food. Try not to get too close just for a better look. You can try to take a picture, but if you have a large group, you want to make sure you divide into a smaller group just so as to not frighten them. Loud noises. So campgrounds are pretty loud places. The type of animals that they're going to attract are things that don't care, like raccoons who are going to come to your campsite. If you were in Yosemite, they definitely come to the campgrounds at night because they know that's where the food is. So in that situation, you're going to make a bunch of noise. But if you actually wanted to see some of the wildlife in the parks, like a fox or a deer or even a bobcat, it's best to teach kids to kind of keep their voice levels down. And it's also something that your fellow campers will appreciate as well. And then the last principle is be considerate of others. So again, noise levels. So in a campground, it can get very noisy. So there's always quiet hours. It's usually between 10 o'clock at night and 8 o'clock in the morning. So be respectful of your fellow campers and try to keep your voices down. And generally, amplified noises are not allowed in campgrounds. So bringing your boombox or whatever is not acceptable. Trail etiquette when you're out hiking. There's certain do's and don'ts. So if you're hiking downhill and there's a group coming uphill and it's on a single track trail, you always want to allow, it's kind of like driving, you always want to allow the person coming uphill to have the right of way because they kind of have their momentum, is the idea. We always want to yield to people on horses. Horses can be unpredictable and spook and then toss that person who's riding off of them. So important to always yield to the horses. And then the bicycles are supposed to yield to everyone. And again, when you're riding a bike or hiking on a trail, you want to call out and let people know that you're coming. Here's a big one that's been happening a lot in the outdoors is people are coming out to our parks and they thought they were super prepared. They downloaded the map onto their phone, but then they found out when they got to the park, they didn't have a signal, and all of a sudden they don't know where they are. I was hiking on Mount Tam the other day, and it was like Memorial Day, and there were so many people out, and people were like, they didn't even know where they'd left their car because they relied on the phone to get them back there, and then all of a sudden, like the battery died. So it behooves us to figure out how to read a map and to make sure you have the proper navigation things, on your phone, and maybe bring a separate charger. to avoid that dependence on technology that might let you down. And also know that drones, as fun as they are for certain activities, that they're illegal in all of the East Bay Regional Parks. And that's the end of my talk. I don't know if anyone has any questions about any of those rules and regulations or any of the topics under Leave No Trace. Perhaps I was
Natalie, did you want to talk about first aid?
Oh yeah. I think for safety, in addition to safety, I think I just want to say bring a first aid kit. Make sure that it has tweezers in case there's so many splinters and bug bites or you're on mute, honey. And I was gonna mention, I posted in the chat that the bug spray, if you're gonna spray your clothes, you have to kind of soak your clothes, like especially your shoes, if you to keep ticks off, and then make sure you tuck in your shirt all the way around. And I think it's a myth that ticks fall from the trees. I think they crawl up from the ground or like at knee level. So you're trying, like you find a tick on your head, it's because it's crawled up there from the bottom. So that's what maybe Morgan or Connie, do you guys have more about that?
Yeah, so ticks are very active in the springtime when there's moisture, and there's all different kinds of ticks, and they carry all kinds of hosts of diseases. But just know that in the Bay Area, only like less than 5% of the ticks that carry Lyme disease actually have that spirochete in them and can transfer it to you. So your chances are pretty slim of actually getting Lyme disease from a tick in this area of the country. But you know, but they used to think that the ticks didn't. They just kind of hung out on the grasses, but they actually do hang out on wood products like picnic benches and picnic tables. So it's always good to check yourself after being outdoors. You always want to do like a tick check, and make sure you get it off as quickly as possible. And don't listen to any of the weird wives' tales. You really just want to grab that tick right where it's attached itself to you with a pair of tweezers, and just pull it out super gently and really slowly. It has these jaws that like are cemented into your skin. And so if you just yank it off, it's going to rip the head off, which is what happens 9 times out of 10. So you kind of want to coax that tick into like releasing its jaws, and then you can get the whole tick off of you. And never use your bare hands. The spirochete that causes the Lyme disease is so small that like if you were to like squeeze it, it could get into you under your skin. It can like actually penetrate your skin, and then you could acquire the disease that way. So just always be aware when you're in tick country. Check your children, you know, just give them a quick look over and just try to get it off as soon as possible. It takes 24 hours of it exchanging fluids with you to acquire the Lyme's disease. So the sooner you get it off, the better. And just take it and flush it down the toilet. Don't send it off to be tested unless you're really concerned, because there's false negatives, and unless you get that bullseye rash, chances are, and you get it off like within 24 hours, you're pretty safe.
So with the Girl Scouts, they say to wear long socks, or to ensure that you don't have your ankles showing, and to check around your waistband, and where your socks meet your shoes. And I think around the wrist too, wherever you're exposed to, your skin is exposed. So be careful of that.
Another thing that I do is just with regards to hygiene, I have the kids wear pajamas in the tent and those pajamas don't leave the tent. So they have to change into their play clothes before they go outside of the tent, and then they can change back in. I can take their clothes off out of the tent and then give them a check when they come into the tent. Then we'll put their PJs on, or even if they just because of that, like making sure your tent is closed during the day. If no, you can let it air out by taking the rain fly out, but then animals can sneak in there, or you don't want things going into your tent, and then when it's dark it's really hard to see. So I think that's something that I do. The shoes, we leave our shoes outside the tent, and we another Girl Scout thing that I really like is that at the end of your camping trip you always sweep out and shake out your tent, making sure that it's clean. And yeah.
One thing with the Girl Scouts that I don't hear a lot of when I see even like list of stuff is bins to wash your dishes in. So with the Girl Scouts, they have a 3-bin thing, which they kind of changed over the years. But first one is water to for your dirty dishes. So usually you have a little bit of soap in it, and that's where you kind of wash. And the second one is to rinse off. And the third one, they used to tell you people to put a cap full of bleach in, but then they say that don't do that now. So I think I've never had bleach, so I kind of just have 2 rinses. And then when the rinse waters gets too nasty, we just kind of move the waters down. No, the other way around. So if the last clean, it used to be clean, water gets too dirty, it gets the second one, and then we put clean water to the 3rd bin, so that there's wash, rinse, rinse, and then we dry. And then the Girl Scouts, what they have us do is we put a line up, if you could put a line up somewhere, and then you hang your dishes to dry, and everybody have their own set of dishes, because in Girl Scouts we do our own thing. We don't have other people doing our dishes, so everybody is responsible for their own set. I find that it's a little bit hard to camp with non-Girl Scouts when we do that, because everybody just kind of pitch in. But if you want to do the Girl Scout way, everybody do their own dishes. And then for the common things, the other thing, what the Girl Scouts do is they have a caper chart. So, which is something that you can do with the families too. Like with the families, you may have people be in charge of the meals, and maybe one family might be in charge of cooking the meal, but then maybe another family could be in charge of cleaning. And then you have, your morning, lunch, and dinner, and then people can rotate. And so that's sort of the caper chart idea that the Girl Scouts have, where you just have it planned and there's no discussions later. That's what we did with, we did a camping actually with the Girl Scouts this year. And in the beginning of camp, we have all the girls plan what chores they want to do, and they decided, and we had enough where they can pair up too, so that was fun for them, where we have stuff like clean up, sweep, we have washing dishes, we have making sure that dinner is cooked. They don't necessarily have to cook the meal, but they supervise the cooking, or if it's reheating, they do that, and then making sure everybody get their food and stuff like that. So if you're camping with families, you can do the same ideas too. Let me see if there's anything else that we might have missed talking about. There were one of the questions that came up was 3 suggested camps. So we talked a lot about China Camp, and we talked a lot about Sugarloaf, and then we talked about Sibley as well, and Chabot. Chabot is really close by, and there's fishing there as well too. But the first time I camped at Chabot, I lived in Oakland, which was only like 15 minutes away. at night, I was like, I'm just gonna drive home. So I felt like close, very, very close is not great. I find that about an hour or 2 hours away is good. And then we also have camped over at Yosemite, that was really nice because it was like totally away too. So that was, but then it wasn't so far away that you're like, oh my gosh, it's so, so far away. So unless, people do destination camping where they're driving like 8 hours out and then they're hiking even further than that, but we're not quite there yet. Another campsite that I really liked, but it's really hard to get reservations for is New Brighton. New Brighton is in Capitola. And so it is right by the water. There's a beach there and you can hear the water, which is like amazing. But it is where there are a lot of cars there and you have to watch the kids. So that's where like it was a huge difference between New Brighton and the China camp where the kids just run wild. But New Brighton was a very nice area and I think I got bit a lot there, but it was so nice. Like I still want to go back because it was just amazing because you feel like you're right by the water. So I really like that place too, but it's always so hard to find find a site there. You have to plan ahead of time. Yeah, Charlene was asking how long ahead to think about camping. Like when before all this COVID stuff and before my kids got a little bit older too, and they have more things going on, we would just plan like 6-7 months ahead of time and we would just book it out for the summer. And then you just have it, you have it planned and you're like, I'm going camping this weekend and I'm going camping the next month. So maybe when your kids aren't so busy, start doing that. And then you have that. And then maybe when they would want to do that too, or just block it out of your calendar.
Good,
That's something that you can do.
Any tips on camping at Yosemite and also RV camping?
So for camping at Yosemite, we booked ahead of time. We camped only at the south of, I forgot, what was the name of that campsite? It was great. In the middle of Yosemite is the Curry Village, and they have a lot of they have cabins to rent out, and they're extremely small and they're very close to one another. But you're in Yosemite, so it's amazing, and there's so much hiking going on there too. So that was a very good thing about Curry Village. But we camped south. I totally forgot the name of the campsite, but there was a river going through, so that was really nice. So that's bear country. There's like, they say that there's definitely bears there. We did not see any bears, but we talked to the rangers and they were telling us to be very, very careful about the food. Make sure all the trash is in, like those, even the garbage cans are like steel. Like it's hard for you to even put your trash in there, but that's because there's so many bears around. But we didn't have any problems. And I think they just say, just be smart about things. And they have talks about the bears. I think they have those every Saturday so that people are aware. And people coexist with the bears, so it's okay. But you do have to be careful. So camping was fun over there. We did different activities. Like we were close by the south end where they have a railroad, we got on the railroad tracks and we did the train ride. So that was a lot of fun. And then you can go to the Half Dome. So there's a lot of things to do at Yosemite, but you do have to plan ahead of time. I think that the tents, there are like over 500 little cabins available. So it's very, like, they're very close by. Those are, very different than the tent camping, but it's available. And then for the RV that you were mentioning, yeah.
Sorry, do you have to bring your own linen with the cabin? Your
Yes.
own linen and
Yeah.
stuff? Okay.
Yeah.
Is
Oh,
it
one thing
heated?
that, huh? Are they
Is it
heated? I don't think so.
Okay.
Some of the cabins in Curry Village, I rented a cabin that
Well,
had its own bathroom and had heat, and that was in the winter. That was great.
that's probably the more expensive ones and then the more spread out ones.
Mhm.
Um, so one thing that we didn't touch upon about is that I think Natalie and I didn't do it, but we went camping with some other friends, and they were saying that you can get service where they can come and set up your tent and rent. Well, you borrow their tents. They come and set it all up, and they take it all away for you too. So if you really don't want to think about those, or have to like set it up or learn how to do it, you can do that as well.
Yeah.
I think
I camped at in Livermore at Lake Del Val, and that was with a group, and it was a really good first time experience for my daughter.
It's scary. Yeah.
And I have to say, if you've never gone camping, it's really helpful to go with experienced people. I mean, they had a potluck dinner, and I learned a lot just from observing. I mean,
Yeah.
I've gone camping, a few times, but it was just really helpful.
Yeah, definitely. If you're lucky enough.
Have you
Yeah.
guys ever done RV camping? Like done any of that? Okay.
So I have not done RV camping, but I do have a friend who actually owns an RV. Before that, they rented RVs. So renting RVs is not cheap. She was saying that it's a nice hotel room each night.
Yeah.
I think it's about like $250 a night or so. And
Oh.
you can get ones that are not that big where you don't need to tow it or anything. You can just drive it. It's more like a little bigger than a minivan.
Mm-hmm.
She did drive it out and did like a big road trip with it, and the way that she talked about it, I didn't think that I want to do it. But I mean, it's something that it's to try out. You have to clean your own RV, you have to do the sewer thing and stuff like that. That did not interest me. But yeah, so the KOA, those campsites, they definitely have a lot of RV hookups, and it was still like $100 a night that you still have to pay extra for. KOA is not cheap, but they have a lot of amenities. They have like splash pads, they have the playgrounds, they have video arcade areas. So I actually haven't gone. We were supposed to go, but it was on a weekend that was supposed to be like over 100 every day. And my girlfriend was like, she was not gonna go because she's not gonna be able to handle the heat. And we already rented it, and then we already paid for it and stuff. So I was still gonna go. And then I thought better about it because it was just gonna be me and the kids. And I was thinking this is gonna be miserable. And so we scrapped the whole thing. But they did have the splash pads open. I was thinking like, we can do that. And then they have like ice cream hour. And I was thinking that was fun. But yeah, we'll have to do that at some point. Yeah, we were gonna rent their TPs, and that was like about 80 a night or something. It sounded like it was kind of small, but it was like something different for us to do. And they have like a barbecue grill for you too. So it sounded fun.
Okay.
Yeah, I think the closest one is in Aptos. So it's not too far. Yeah, we were going to go up north to like a Central Valley to Willits. I don't know. We were gonna try something different out, but then it didn't work out because it was gonna be so hot. Yeah, look out for the weather.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, we camped once at the Redwoods in I think Big Basin, or no, Henry Coe, I think. And it was in a very, very hot weekend, but then because of all the redwoods, we were like in 80, like inside the redwoods, it was cool. So that was really nice.
Yeah.
So we had the opposite effect in like the Bay Area had a heat wave, but then when we went camping, it was just perfect.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. Any other questions? We talked about an hour and a half. Well, thank you so much. Thank you, Morgan, for coming. Thank you for
Thanks
sharing
for
all the
having me.
information.
Thanks for
If
having
you have
me.
any-
Thank you, Morgan.
Great. If you have any
Yeah,
questions,
thank you.
you can always go to Fun Moms page as well as the Fun Moms Facebook page to ask questions. We'll get this recording up at some point. It'll be on our YouTube channel as well as available on the Facebook page.
I'll be right back.
Thank you. Have a good night.
You too.
Good night. Thank you.
Night.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.